Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we're talking about something very near and dear to my heart. We are talking about how do you take parental leave when you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur. So crossing that threshold into parenthood is a huge emotional experience, as well as a physical experience. But then also, if you are a small business owner or entrepreneur, it is a huge responsibility to shoulder that business and help it continue to move forward. So how do you have one foot in keeping your business going and one giant foot in investing in being a new parent? So to have this conversation, we have Arianna Taboada, and she is talking all about how do we help set ourselves up for parental leave as a small business owner. But let me tell you a little bit about Arianna. So she is the founder of The Expecting Entrepreneur, a strategic advisory firm focused on parental leave planning for entrepreneurs and founders. And prior to her counseling practice, Arianna worked on mental maternal health issues for over a decade as a health educator, social worker trainee, and reproductive health researcher and yoga therapist. It's a really great conversation, and she gives very concrete tools for those that will be facing having a baby while still shouldering the responsibility of owning a business. Now, before we get to my conversation with Arianna, I just want to remind you to head to our brand new, I'm so excited, it's so pretty, our brand new website. Check it out. I'm so happy about it. And while you're there, download our free downloadable of 5 simple solutions to the most common pregnancy pains. So we give you 5 yoga poses that you can do any time of day if something's bothering your neck, your hips, your back. So while pregnant or postpartum, chances are something in your body is going to be a little achy, and this can help you get past that discomfort. Now, of course, even better to take a class, and we have classes online 7 days a week. So you can jump online to take a class, or we have classes in person at the studio 5 days a week. So whether you are living in New York and just can't get to the Upper Side, or our classes don't fit with your schedule, you can join us online or in person, or during the summer, classes in Central Park right around Strawberry Fields. So lots of classes. And of course, we have our workshops and our on-demand workshops, and also our teacher training, which is coming up soon. So we are going to do 2 trainings in person per year and 2 online. So if you can't get to New York City and you want to do our well-renowned, our really in-depth training, jump into our website and check that out, because you can do it online. And then if you do want to do it in person, we have opportunities for that. I'm very excited about that. And then the last thing I want to just invite you to do is let me know if there's a topic I haven't covered, or maybe a speaker that you think I would enjoy chatting with. So you can share that with me at deb@prenatalyogacenter.com. You can just title it either podcast topic or podcast speaker. And I really do appreciate your feedback, because I want to make sure that I'm serving you the best I can. And I also want to thank those that have left a rating and review. It helps people find us. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a moment, even press pause right now, and leave a rating and review so people can find the podcast. All right, that's enough for me. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Arianna.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hi, Arianna. How are you?
Hi, I'm glad to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, when I came across this topic, I don't remember if you reached out to us or if I found it, but when I saw the idea of baby-proofing your business, I was really excited. And I know it's a bit niche, but as a business owner who's had 2 kids, I still remember the stress around what that looks like and the anxiety of like, how am I going to keep my business going? So this is super exciting to chat with you. So I guess we should dive in with, I want to learn more about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I was, chuckling to myself because yes, it is very niche and also just demographically, lots of business owners run into this.
Yes. Yes.
And so I, like many people, like many business owners, became kind of a accidental entrepreneur, if you will. So my background is actually as a health professional. I'm a social worker and I went to graduate school in maternal child health and worked in formal health system settings for a while in the perinatal health space, and then went out into private practice in 2013 and started noticing that this issue kept on coming up. And so instead of kind of broadly addressing perinatal health, which I tended to do, trained as a generalist, ready to tackle any of the variety of issues that might come up postpartum, I ended up really narrowing in and focusing on this particular issue.
That is really fascinating. I did not know you were a social worker. My husband's a social worker, and so is my mom. So I have a soft spot in my heart for anyone that chooses that path because it's not an easy path.
It's not, but thankfully you can do a lot of different things with it.
So did you get interested in the entrepreneurial maternity leave from your own experience?
So interestingly enough, I didn't have a child when I first started working in this space. I get the question a lot of like, oh, is this kind of inspired by your lived experience? And the reality was that it was just inspired by what I was seeing in terms of clients walking in the door and what was the highest need that I had the tools and training to help them navigate. So eventually I did, make myself my own client. And when I was pregnant and trying to figure out how to plan my leave, I definitely walked myself through all the full process that I walked clients through before. So it's influenced my journey as a parent, even if it wasn't inspired by it.
So when you were saying that you had your clients coming in and this is something that they were saying, what were you hearing them say that you thought, oh gosh, we really need to address this?
Yeah. So I tended to work with folks in the postpartum period and not in moments of crisis necessarily, but when they were struggling with a lot of things. And so people tended to come in with social emotional kind of challenges that they were working on, the transition back to work. And what kept coming up over and over again is that I started realizing folks who I tended to work with were self-employed and were really struggling with the how do you logistically get back to work and financial stressors associated with parental leave when you are self-employed, as well as the kind of normal spectrum of postpartum emotional health. And so there were quite a few kind of unique things about being self-employed, that people were navigating alongside, kind of a general postpartum experience and all the varieties, all the ways that postpartum time can show up and be a challenging time.
So I guess, let's start to get a little bit more specific because I will admit that I had some envy around my fellow friends that were having their babies when I had mine, and we would be in new mom support groups together, and they're like, oh yeah, my maternity leave is up then, and they really were able to check out. And I did not really. I mean, I wasn't teaching classes, but I was still very much in it, and I felt like, it's my business. I couldn't totally be like, okay, peace out. I'll see you in 10 or 12 weeks. So what are some ways someone can design a parental leave that works for them as an entrepreneur, which is very different than if they work for someone else?
Yeah, well, I'll start by building on exactly what you were talking about, which is normalizing the fact that your leave will not look like other people's leave. There is no policy or structure or roadmap. And so I think one of the first questions that often comes up is this question of like, can I even take leave? And my answer is always yes. And it might not look like what other people's leave looks like. It might not be some of what you mentioned, the checking out completely, the like having a X number of weeks totally, off, being paid, unless you happen to be in one of the states that has a paid leave program, and there's hoops to jump through as a self-employed person, even for those. But so there's a couple principles that I do like to share about ways that you can think about designing parental leave. The first is planning on experimenting. And so there are ways to think about a leave structure that works for your business model and your personal needs, and being open to trying out different things during those postpartum times and the transition back to work, including transition time. Like one of the only silver linings for self-employed people is that you do not have like a hard deadline when you are 100% off of work or 100% back. And so you can blur the lines a little bit about what does it mean to quote unquote go back to work, or what does it mean to be, in quotations again, off, and think about what truly comes off your plate and what are the different ways that you might still be connected and moving things along in a way that honors, whatever your postpartum experience and the kind of health related or social emotional things that come up along that time period as well.
So how does this differ when someone's starting to make or design their plan, design their leave? How would that differ for someone that's working with a team running their business compared to someone that is just a sole business runner, owner person?
Yeah. So with a team, there are potentially more things that can be delegated, opportunities to kind of train your staff, increase their capacity to take on some of the things that would normally be on your plate. And when you do not have those team members, it requires like an honest look at the list of things that you are doing and getting really honest with yourself about what will simply not get done for a period of time versus what could be batched ahead of time. And so there's often more things that are put on pause as opposed to delegated or even kind of automated to some extent. With both people, both scenarios, whether you're a solopreneur or have a small team, what the opportunity is that comes up over and over again is to kind of look at your systems and processes with fresh eyes about like, am I really doing this in the way that makes sense for my business? And the ability to pregnancy can kind of be a forcing function and thinking about what do I want to be spending my time on? And knowing that you're stepping away for the time being and have kind of an opportunity to come back and start anew. In some ways, rewriting the ways in which you spend your time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So what are some concrete tools and ways to plan for support while preparing for parental leave and on parental leave?
Sure. So I'll mention two specific tools that I've used over the years with clients. One more so in the business side and one more on the personal planning side. So on the business side, the first thing that comes to mind is a kind of a time tracking exercise that helps you think about standard operating procedures and really begin to look at what can be automated, delegated, batched, paused, et cetera. And so I often recommend that folks look at a 2-week period and use, it feels very tedious while you're doing it, but it pays dividends, like a half an hour by half an hour spreadsheet. And I have a template I'm happy to share with folks if that's of interest. Where you really track how are you spending your time, and then you look at all of you do essentially an audit and you begin to sort things into buckets and categories so that you can think about what are the things that have to happen while I take some time off, what are the things that maybe just really need to happen on a quarterly basis, what are the things that are happening weekly right now that could happen monthly or could be paused, and beginning to look at the different moving parts of your business and how those can be taken care of in a different way.
I did that. I was working with a business coach and she asked me to do a time audit. And I have to tell you, I was very resistant because it takes time to do the time audit. And it was a bit of a pain in the neck, but wow, when I was able to finish that, I didn't do it for 2 weeks. I think I did it for 10 days and step back. I was able to see where I actually put more time than I thought into tasks. And then it also helped me group tasks together and then delegate things like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time doing this. And that doesn't need to be necessarily on my shoulders. So then I could delegate that out. So I love the time audit. That's a really, really smart tool.
Yeah. And I'm so happy. Like it works. Hearing you say that is like, it works outside of the context of pregnancy and leave too, right?
Yeah. It just shows you where you put your time and where, like you said, like, can you batch things? So if you're someone that has, let's say social media as a business owner, you can batch a lot ahead of time before someone takes their maternity leave.
Yeah.
All right, so I totally interrupted you. All right, so that was one tool. Keep going.
Yeah, the second tool I'll mention, and as someone with social workers in their family, you might have heard of it. It's called a eco map, and it is literally a visual map that you can use to identify gaps in your support system and begin to think about how to create a postpartum support network. And so that's something, especially for entrepreneurs that do tend to work by themselves or might be kind of at risk for experiencing a little isolation in the postpartum period, to really do some careful thinking about what are the ways in which you can build up a support network, and what do you have in terms of resources for support right now, and where might there be some gaps you can fill.
Are you thinking that also the entrepreneur may want to hire someone to step in and to fill those gaps? Is that what you're thinking about for support?
Yeah. So there's often times where, people realize I am the person who does like all the cooking and dog walking in my household, and I do not want to be doing those things for a few weeks. So that's like a pretty, quick way to assess, like, okay, these are people that I could tap in my network, to bigger things.
So you're talking more personal network as opposed to the business network. Okay.
Yeah. So the eco map is really focused on personal support networks, which in some, I think of it, I'm talking about these tools as if they're like separate business and personal, but one of the ways that, is interesting to think about parental leave for business owners is like whatever support you have around you as a human in the postpartum period is going to have a direct impact on your kind of sustainability as a business owner and an ability to return to work in kind of as high functioning as you are able to, depending on what resources and support you have in your personal life.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. I love the eco map. I actually had not heard about that. So that's an interesting thing to think about. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, that when I had my kids, I stopped teaching, but I was still very much in the loop. I still had to do payroll. So when you're talking about parental leave for a business owner or entrepreneur, what do you think, like, what does that look like for most business owners and entrepreneurs, or what are you hoping people can create a structure? Like, do you really think they could step away for that much, or they're just not getting quite as knee deep in everything?
Yeah. So it really varies. I think over the 10 years that I, specifically worked one-on-one with people, it looked so many different ways. Like I had clients that really took like an extended pause, 6 months away from their business.
Wow.
And folks that, took much shorter, 2 to 3 weeks. So some of the things that impacted what the leave looks like is what we mentioned at the beginning, what your team looks like. And it also tends to vary on the business model. And so, some folks who, like accountants, for example, depending on when you're having your baby, there might be very clear kind of seasons of the year where there's more work.
You
that
say accountants, and I just laugh because one of my good friends who happens to be my accountant for the last 20 years, I was the doula for his first child. And unfortunately, it was like mid-February when she had her baby. And I remember Adam being like, this is the worst time possible. So, and then he was kind of like, he was checked out. But that's so true. There are definitely seasonal considerations for some people that are business owners.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that I initially do with people, because, people are like, tell me what to do. How many weeks do I take off? And there isn't really a right answer. So part of the conversation is oftentimes having the time to think and reflect on what you would like your leave to look like. Like if you could create this ideal plan, what would that look like? What would it feel like? And then getting into the nitty gritty of like, what would your business need in order to make that happen? And kind of reverse engineering some of it.
I want to start talking about the financial planning for this. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's dive into, if you are a small business owner, how do you financially plan for paternal leave? So we'll be right back.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Okay, we're back. So this is what I personally found the scariest. Just like, how do you plan taking time off if money's not flowing in?
Yeah. I mean, this is like the number one stressor that comes up over and over again. And I always like to, point out that I definitely take a stance of parental leave is a human right. Like this is not an issue that we should be having to figure out like family by family, individual by individual. And given the context of the U.S. being one of the only countries that does not have paid parental leave, that's the situation we find ourselves in. So I always just like to underscore that we deserve better.
Yep, I agree.
And that said, there's a couple of different things that factor in, and knowing that this can be one of the most stressful pieces to plan. Like I have a book called The Expecting Entrepreneur, and the topic that gets at financials has like several places where it's like, if this is feeling stressful, take a deep breath or put the book down and come back later. So just acknowledging that, like, if your palms start feeling sweaty and your heart starts beating, just hearing about the topic, that is normal. It can be stressful. And so some of the questions that I often have folks think about is what your family circumstances are and what your family needs from you. And so that oftentimes is kind of, if you're a partner, having an honest conversation with them about what personal savings or what personal approaches would you want to take in terms of self-funding a leave. And on the other hand, looking at business finances and thinking about what does cash flow look like in your business? What kind of runway do you have? If you have a cushion, what is it looking like? If you think you want to build up a cushion, what would that take? And so looking at those two things side by side, and there's some definite crossover there, right? Like, especially if you are your primary breadwinner for your family, or if you, have the kind of business where you are consistently taking owner's draws or you're paying yourself a salary, that's going to impact what is possible. And The other thing that I think is always worth mentioning is that more and more states are kind of filling this federal gap and setting up paid leave programs. And so if you live in one of those states that has a paid leave program, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm self-employed. It's not even worth looking into. But I always say, like, it takes a little time to fill out the paperwork and navigate. But if you have been paying into that money is there to support you. And so do not be afraid to, if you live in one of the states that has a paid leave program, to submit the paperwork and be supported by the dollars that you have put in over the years.
That is great. I know that I know that as a business owner, I've had to fill the paperwork out for my teachers, but those are employees. So maybe New York is one of them and maybe not, I'm not sure, but would that be the kind of thing that if you pay New York State, New York City tax, a business owner would get money back from?
So it depends on how you are set up in terms of if you are getting into kind of the legal structure, which I definitely am not an expert on,
okay.
But how your business is incorporated, if you're a sole prop, if you're LLC,
okay.
if you are paying, how you are paying your taxes. But essentially, if you are paying self-employment tax, this is a great question to ask your financial kind of support person, an accountant, a financial advisor, whoever does your taxes. If you are paying via that self-employment tax into the paid leave program, then you would have money to draw on, whether you're a business owner or working for a small business.
Interesting. I didn't know that. See, I love learning new things. This is really fascinating. So you talked about looking at, okay, we have the breadwinner, we have maybe it's an equal. And when you're talking about how to set that up, do you think ideally maybe putting a separate, like we talked about, there could be a state account that someone's drawing from. If the person doesn't have that, do you suggest maybe putting aside like a separate savings account that leading up to their time off, they just put into, so then when they are off, they can grab from that?
Yep. It's kind of setting up a self-funded parental leave pot of money, if you will. And so that oftentimes takes some planning ahead. And so if you're not even, you could not be pregnant and just be thinking about what might it look like to start a family, that's something you could start doing.
That's really smart. I actually think that's a really good idea for people that are considering, because once you're pregnant, there's a lot of other things to think about too.
Yeah. And the other kind of financial planning tidbit, I guess, that is also worth mentioning. Again, this is thinking further down the road, but as a small business owner, you oftentimes are purchasing insurance for the small business, like liability insurance, and looking into disability insurance. So that is another way I have seen people pay for their leave. Again, we won't get into why pregnancy is considered a disability, but if you purchase it before you are pregnant, and you are paying into that, then those funds again can be drawn on, as you become pregnant and postpartum, and so that's a great question to bring to your insurance broker, about what disability policies are available to you. And similar to other
really
kinds
smart.
of insurance.
I did not know that about the disability insurance, that somebody could take disability when they're on maternity leave. Wow. These are great suggestions. So what sort of network do you recommend setting up to support your physical, emotional, and social well-being? Yeah.
So what comes to mind again is the eco map. And if you kind of are a visual person, you can think about you are in the middle of this circle, and then there's concentric circles that get bigger and bigger, kind of leading out from you. And so I like using that image to think about who are the people in the inner circle of this network. So that might be family or friends, or literally people who are geographically close to you. And then if you go out one more circle, thinking about what are the community supports available to you. And so that might be things like, is there a prenatal yoga community that you might be a part of? Or is there a new parents group that gathers? And then at the widest run, thinking about professional supports. And so this might be things like pelvic floor PTs, perinatal mental health professionals, lactation consultants. So not people that you would kind of interact with on a regular basis unless you were specifically seeking them out, but having some sense of who are those professionals that you could go to, and likewise, what are the new parent groups you could go to? Who are the friends you could call just to come over and sit with you if you needed some company but didn't feel like leaving the house? Building out that support network and mapping it out can be a great way to think about who do I already know that can help meet these needs, and who might I want to build a relationship, or what professionals might I want to do a little bit of research on, so that if I need them, I know where to go.
I think that's so smart. We tell our students all the time to have, that's part of what we call our postpartum plan, is a lot of people put the focus on having the baby and pregnancy, and then the after with the lactation consultants that they might need. So they're not Googling at 3 a.m. They have that all set up. So we're going to take one more break, but when we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you would like to offer new and expectant parents? We'll be right back.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So we are back. So what is popping into your mind? One final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
Yeah. So I'll end with something that I think is maybe a bit more personal, but I also learned it's kind of a universal experience, which is about this integration of identity. It's like you literally become a parent overnight, or, from the span of 1 minute to the next. But figuring out what that means for you and what this new identity looks like and feels like doesn't just happen with the snap of the fingers. And so, I found that having permission from my own providers around what it meant to grieve that person who I was and really not feel sure about who I was now, that was incredibly helpful. And so I always just like to share with folks that even if you become a parent from 1 minute to the next, that developing of your parent identity doesn't need to be instantaneous. And it's okay to feel like you are figuring it out with every kind of minute or day.
Or year.
A little bit more. Yeah.
My son's almost 11, and there's still times I look back to I call my pre-parent time to my current parent time, and they're a little crossed over. I'm like, sometimes I see glimpses of that person, and sometimes I still feel like I'm developing into the parent. So I think it's a lifelong journey.
Yes.
Where can people find your work?
So pretty much everything lives at theexpectingentrepreneur.com. There's a book that can be a resource there. There's kind of links to social, and then in the show notes we can share links to some of those resources I mentioned, if that would be helpful.
That would be fantastic. I have a vision in my head since you described this circle and then going out, but I think it would be really helpful for people to have that, and so they can start to map out their support. That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure thing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this. I think for those that fall into this very specific category of business owner, entrepreneur that are pregnant, knowing they're going to have to take some sort of time off, I think this can take some of that anxiety and edge off. So thank you for sharing this really valuable information.
Thank you for having me.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
Hey there. Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.